guys, Tomboy601, and today I'm in the Hermes on straight. And you may be like, Tommy, why are you in the Hermes? And, well, that's because Wargaming is giving away free credits in order to play both the Tier 3 and the Tier 5 CVs in regular matchmaking. So I braved my 3-minute wait for a match in the Hermes, and this is the result. Opening part of the game, not too exciting, but the end of the game is a nail biter and one where we have to essentially duel another Hermes, and it becomes fun. I also wanted to kind of feature this game because I know there's been a lot of struggles with the British aircraft carriers, and honestly, I have been having the most fun with them. They're probably my most consistent damage dealers, not Hermes, but the rest of the line. I've really been enjoying it. So I'll go ahead and also talk through some tips here. Now, one of the biggest struggles with Hermes is going to be the torpedoes, and that's because there's only one. And let me tell you, it's very easy to dodge a singular torpedo. Once you get on to the rest of the line, to Furious and Implacable, you do get multiple torpedoes, and they kind of come in on each other, so you're able to aim them and focus them much better. But where we are now, unfortunately, it is a lot more difficult to use these torpedoes. That's kind of why I ended up recommending just to skip Hermes overall. Just use the GXP to skip through it, because the frustration that Hermes provides, not 100% worth it compared to the rest of the line. But as far as tips and tricks go, the torpedoes can be surprisingly good, both on the horizontal and the vertical plane, I guess you could call it. What I'm saying is, because of their self-centering nature, you can drop them bow to stern or on a horizontal line. Both can be relatively effective, though with the singular torp, I would say the horizontal, the coming at a ship off to its port or starboard side, is going to be my highest recommendation for it. Now, the other thing that I really do enjoy about these aircraft carriers is their ability to drop bombs and to be able to do some damage to destroyers. Now, it is a lot easier once you get, like I said, with once you get into Furious and Implacable, because you get more bombs, and more bombs saturating an area does make it a lot easier. But being able just to even damage the destroyers more consistently is a huge benefit. You just kind of have to time it right, making sure that the bombs are kind of at the front of the ship, or you have to kind of take in that drop time and drop where that ship is going to be. And a lot of times it's dropping it where the ship isn't even in the oval when you pull the trigger, but instead when it's about to enter that oval, and generally then you'll get some pretty good drop time. So we've pretty much secured our flank. We can see our team is kind of pushing through on this flank, and now we have a bigger concern, because it looks like 2 battleships are essentially just driving straight up the line, and battleships are a relatively easy target for any of the CVs. So now this is where we are going to start to do some of our damage. We get this first drop in, looking good on the New York. 3 bombs hit. Not huge amounts of damage, but we do start a fire, and that is the kind of key to the British CVs, is getting that damage over time ticking. Their torpedoes, being the way that they are self-centering, especially when you have 2 of them, allow much easier hits on the bow and stern, where the torpedo protection on ships tends to not exist, and you do tend to have much better flooding chances when you hit, or at least this is what I found, you seem to have better flood chances when you don't hit the torpedo belts on ships. So that is one nice little benefit, because if you can get the floods, those are really nice. But with the New York, he appears to have extinguished that fire, so we're going to go ahead and start bullying him, also because he's in the cap. So if we can get him resetting, that is exactly what we want to do. We can see we have set our course to kind of push through that right flank and kind of get us as far away as possible from those battleships, because if their CV decides to start looking for us, they're going to have a very clean shot, and we won't last too long if we can be seen by some battleships. But we got that one fire on New York. It's going to be a permanent fire. We get our second pass right here. One of the nice things also about the bombs is because of the way they drop in the kind of horizontal, low horizontal manner that they do, is when you are going up against the taller targets like a battleship, it can be somewhat effective to come in on that perpendicular angle if that's going to be the best angle of attack or the quickest angle of attack. You can still get a fairly decent number of bomb hits because the bombs tend to kind of travel in a diagonal path along the drop point. And if you have a tall ship, you're going to have a much larger area to hit than if they are coming in straight vertically. I don't know if that makes 100% sense, but it makes sense to me, so that's what I'm going with. Anyways, New York is looking rough right now. We're going to keep focusing on it just because, well, it's still in the capture circle. We see the ship behind it, I think it's a Wyoming, has also now entered the cap circle. But, you know, they are definitely taking a beating, right? That New York was all the way up to full health when we started this little engagement, and he is now slowly being whittled down to some very low health. Of course, American battleships do tend to have some pretty good AA, so we do kind of have to be cautious about getting deplaned here because we don't really have a ton of planes to really like go out and lose, but we are doing some pretty good and consistent damage to them, especially now that we can see that Wyoming seems to have also gotten some pretty big hits onto it, and we may try to go finish off Wyoming first and then focus on New York, trying to, you know, eliminate as many guns from the equation as we can, right? Each ship, each gun represents damage over time that can be done to your team. So if you can knock a ship off the board, you should always do so, because that represents a complete removal of a section of the damage possible that the enemy team can do. And, you know, it's one of the things where, as an aircraft carrier player, you have the ability to see who has health and who doesn't have health, and who you have a good chance of being able to go after, and who you can strategize and kind of start to go after. But as we see it, New York has kind of left the cap circle, or is trying to prevent himself from leaving the cap circle. He's starting to get kind of low on health, but it's now our turn to kind of just start finishing him off, and then we can start focusing towards the rest of, or towards the two remaining ships. After we get rid of the New York, we'll of course have the enemy aircraft carrier to deal with, and one other cruiser. That cruiser looking like he's starting to sort of flee, so we will have to get ready. It does look like our cruiser may fall victim to the other CV, which will be unfortunate. Now, something we do need to realize and recognize right now as far as how this game is going is the enemy team is up on points, and the reason they're up on points is, of course, because they have been contesting our cap for quite a while. When an enemy team contests a cap or starts to capture it, it prevents you from gaining points. So it provides a positive delta towards their points. And that's something that we are now going to have to rectify. We know exactly where the enemy is, right? We know that, one, the enemy CV is nowhere on this side of the map, and we know that because, well, look at where the cruiser is. He hasn't spotted it, and we haven't spotted it. Also, we can kind of see where the planes are coming from. So that tells us that if he's not over there, he has to be over on that left side of the map, and he actually gets spotted right there, which means it's clear for us to steam straight towards it. Now, our cruiser is currently in the cap. He actually just ended up leaving it, and they are down to a cruiser and a CV, and they're right next to each other, which means we have to be cautious with what we do right now. CVs do have a very powerful AA. They do have a very good air fighters that can go up and destroy your planes, and we don't really have a ton of squadrons to spare right now. But we are going to try to do what we can. One thing that is important for us to kind of realize and notice is where this enemy cruiser is going. Because if he's coming towards us, he's going to have to be a much higher priority, and he's going to be one that we have to worry about a lot more. Fortunately, it looks like he is heading away, and he is somewhat low on health, which is good. It does also appear that the enemy Hermes is also somewhat in the going with him move. Actually, now he's turning out as I say that. But our point now is we want to kind of focus, try to get down this cruiser because he's going to go for the cap, and then we will try to start dealing with this enemy Hermes. As we saw earlier, the singular torpedoes is not going to be a viable strategy for us. We tried to take out that Marblehead, and Omaha is just a Marblehead. They're the same class of ship. We know it isn't going to be effective with torpedoes, so our best play right now is going to be to go ahead and use the HE bombs. He doesn't have too much health remaining, so hopefully what we can do is finish off this Omaha and and then be able to start capping the back cap, stall enough points, and hopefully end up with a victory. That's the current plan. Now we can see our destroyer decided it was a good idea to try and outgun a Omaha. Sadly, it did not work in his favor. It increases the points delta that we now have to make up. But good news, he is now relatively low on health, so we should and hopefully can eliminate him with just one bomb drop. Sadly, we go a little bit too far right, and we totally whiff that first bomb drop. Of course, I think he knows where we are by now, just because he can see where the planes are coming from, but we at least have a couple more drops where if we can get 1 or 2 hits with these bombs, of course, the bombs don't have a lot of alpha strike, they don't have a lot of initial damage, but if we can go ahead and hit him with it, we'll be in a good spot. We hit him with 2 right there, but they don't do anything, which is kind of annoying, but we will try again. Or did our damage even go up there? I don't know, but we'll hopefully get him with this one last strike right here. Nose on in, looking beautiful. we take him down, and thankfully now it is Hermes v Hermes, and we can see each other. It is now going to be a duel. So what's the plan and what's the strategy? Well, it's going to be to get deplaned pretty much. We set the course for just outside of the cap, but we do have to kind of realize that we are going to need to be prepared to lose a couple of planes and to try to stay in that cap to prevent them from ticking up on points, because that's what we have to do. We have to stay in the cap long enough for us not to tick up on points. Thankfully, we get a fire with our first drop right here. Of course, remember, our plan is damage over time. Aircraft carriers don't have the ability to manually do their damage control party. So that singular fire, he just burnt his damage control party. We are now going to try to get that damage over time to start ticking. Both of us are running towards each other at this point, and it's going to get close. We go ahead and try to drop a torpedo on the nose. It's looking pretty good, but sadly, we end up with a miss. One benefit to us kind of flying over a little bit earlier was that he launched his defensive fighter squadrons way earlier than we had. So we have this nice little window right here where we are able to get a couple of drops off unimpeded and without having to really worry about doing the damage. Now, as he enters the cap, we're still going to be contesting and basically causing him to lose points. And at this point, we're only 4 or 5 points away from losing, though we did exit the cap. We did set ourselves back. So what we need to do is either A, win this Hermes duel, or B, scare him off and last minute in the game. So far, I think we are coming out definitely on top. Our secondaries are dueling it out with each other. We've only lost a little bit of health, and he has lost nearly half of his health, which is very beneficial to us. We know that damage control party still down on cooldown, and the one nice thing about the British bombs, they spread out and do a lot of damage. And the flat top of a carrier is the perfect place to do said damage. So now we get to really try to do some damage to him. We're up over almost 50,000 damage, and that's all pretty much been being able to get these hits off on this aircraft carrier. But we can see, I think that's 3 fires now on him. He is definitely burning down, and we only have a couple seconds left. but we do end up winning. And yeah, that was this fun little game in Hermes. Guys, if you liked the video, go ahead, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. See ya.